I was part of a customer development interview with one of my clients today, and it made me remember is something that I encounter all the time. So remembering is like I do it all the time. It made me remember what the difficulties of customer development are and why there are so many difficulties. So on this video, I'll be explaining why customer development is so difficult, but also why it's absolutely necessary for your startup to understand and do it well, and for your company to understand and do it well. So let's talk about that. We were doing a customer development interview, and it was with someone who my client had come up with a really good idea for how to get people to understand their software better. And it was essentially a challenge. And so we went to a convention, a conference, and at that conference, we met a bunch of people and invited them to participate in this challenge. And the challenge was to utilize the software like their clients would utilize the software. Okay, so it's a B2B business, and they're saying, instead of using the software the way that you probably will as a provider, we're going to have you use the software as you would as an end user. And so we're talking to one of the people who is a provider who was utilizing the software as a part of this challenge. And part of that is understanding one of the keys to customer development is, does the person I'm talking to have a hair on fire problem? This is especially true if you are a new business, a new company in a new market, meaning that you're trying to change the behavior of the people in the marketplace. This is very difficult to do. Changing people's behavior is very difficult. People would rather, I think existing markets are a little bit easier because you can say, hey, look, we do the same thing that this other company does. We just do it a little bit differently. And therefore you'd want to use it, right? But this is a new market, which means that are people even ready for the technology yet is like a huge question. And believe it or not, the time that you come out with your product is, this was true maybe 5, 7 years ago. It might not be true anymore, but at that point in time, what was true is that timing about when your product hits the market is the biggest indicator of whether or not your product would take off or if your business will go out of business. Was the market ready for your product? And for new markets, that can be really difficult. So one of the things we're trying to understand as we talk to people are like, do you have a hair on fire problem? So why do we call it a hair on fire problem? The problem is so bad that it's like my head is on fire and I need to put the fire out soon, right? In other words, the people are very motivated to solve the problem that exists for either them or their patients or both, right? Or I should say their end users. It just so happens that that's patients in my client's organization. And the reason why customer development is so difficult, and the reason why Steve Blank in 4 Steps to the Epiphany spends so much time on making a process that we can follow that gets us the answers that we need to the questions, is that it's very difficult to validate that what people are telling you in customer development interviews is accurate. So let me explain why that is. When you talk to potential customers, you're oftentimes going to be talking to either people you know or people maybe that you don't know directly, but they're like a friend of a friend or something along those lines, an acquaintance. And the issue with that, and just even if you don't know them at all, the issue with people talking to other people is oftentimes I don't say things as bluntly because I might not want to hurt your feelings. So if you're asking me like, well, what do you think of my product? They might be like, well, yeah, the product seems pretty cool. Okay, but that does not tell me if the person's going to actually pull out their wallet and give me money in order to utilize the product. And that's why they say you have to have a hair on fire problem, because it's kind of like I have to get this fire off my head. Your product will do it. I'll buy it right now, right? And so one of the questions that I asked today, because the interviewee was being very favorable to the product. I really liked using the product. I really liked my experience in this challenge. I thought that it was really easy to use. All these really good things, right? So it's not a bad interview in any way, shape, or form, but I'm really trying to understand, but are you going to buy it from me? And I know, having done this so many times with dozens of companies, that sometimes people will give you false positives that they're going to be a really valuable customer of yours. So then I finally said to him, I said, well, if you were going to say on a scale of 1 to 10, like how likely are you to utilize this product? Like, where would you put yourself? And the answer he gave was a good one because it's the most challenging answer, which is both good and bad, right? A 10 out of 10 means that they're like, I have a hair on fire problem and I will use this product tomorrow. A 9 out of 10 means you can probably convince them to start using the product. And if it provides value, then they'll keep paying it. But but here's the problem, and I like to use net promoter score language for this. So net promoter score is, if you don't know what it is, many of you probably do. If somebody gives you a 0 to a 6, it means that they're a detractor. It means that if someone were to ask them, this is the way I like to think about it. Okay, so just know that this is my interpretation. If someone were to ask them about the product, their answer being a 0 to a 6 would sort of be like them saying, "Yeah, I wouldn't use it." Let's just pretend that's what it means. Okay, a 7 or an 8 is considered. I can't remember the name that they call it. They're like neutrals, right? And a 7 or 8 is a neutral. It's kind of like, yeah, I like it, but that doesn't mean that you're raving about it to the point where someone would be like, oh, you're raving about it so much that I'm going to need to use it. And then the 9 or a 10 are promoters. They're going to go around saying like, this is the best product I've ever used. You should totally use this product. So I asked the guy, I said, on a scale of, I know I gave him a scale of 1 to 10. I didn't give him a scale of 0 to 10 just because it's a little bit more colloquial to say 1 to 10. So I said, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate this product? And he said, oh, probably an 8 or a 9. Most difficult answer because it's hard to tell if that's a hair on fire problem, like I'm definitely going to buy, or if that's I really like it, but I'm not sure I'll buy it. Just because, like, you think about buying a product, especially if it's on the B2B level, you have to get sometimes you have to get multiple stakeholders to buy into it. Other times you have to really budget for it, and if your budget doesn't allow for that product, then you might say no to it. So an 8 or a 9 is like one of the more difficult answers because it means, are we going to actually be able to convert this person to a customer or not? Now, I've even had 9s or 10s drop out of the process because what they perceive to be 100% necessary to their product. Again, in a new market, this is more common. It's a new market. People are like really excited about technology. And then something that they encounter in their business makes them go, oh, wait a minute, maybe I'm not as excited about this as I thought. Maybe I don't even want to use this thing. So even 9s or 10s can drop depending on the time frame that you're asking them in. So, but this is why it is so necessary to do customer development, because we need to validate over and over and over again until they're a paying customer and have a specific life cycle to them. We have to validate that they're going to actually be a customer. And almost every business that I've done customer development for that didn't validate customers ends up going out of business because you just go, I can't find the right marketplace for this. Now, let's just say that you got lucky, like a lot of startup founders do, and you didn't do customer development, but your business started taking off. Well, then the question I have for you is, okay, but do you really understand why it took off? Because at any point in time in your future, if you don't understand why the business took off, there could be a time when the business or the marketplace changes slightly and all of your business goes to zero. How do you recover from that? You don't even know why people were buying in the first place. Does it mean you need to change your product? Does it mean the market shifted? It means you're left not knowing, and it may mean that you have to go out of business at that point. That's even more painful because you were successful and you thought your business had gotten off the ground. So I'm a huge fan of customer development, but I'm not going to pretend that it's easy because it's very difficult. So if you need customer development help, if you have questions about customer development for your organization or marketing questions, always let me know, because sometimes your questions turn into future videos on this channel. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you later. Bye.